Hey everybody, so now we are in Proverbs 3, and today is the third, so here we go. Using wisdom. My son, forget not my law, but let thy heart keep my commandments. For length of days and long life and peace shall they add to thee. Let not mercy and truth forsake thee. Bind them about thy neck, write them upon the table of thine heart. So shall thou find favor and good understanding in the sight of God and man. Verse 5, trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. Be not wise in thine own eyes, fear the Lord, and depart from evil. It shall be health to thy navel, and marrow to thy bones. Honor the Lord with thy substance, and with the first fruits of all thine increase. So shall thy barns be filled with plenty, and thy presses shall burst out with new wine. Let me jump down. Verse 12. For whom the Lord loves, he corrects, even as a father, the son in whom he delights. Happy is the man that finds wisdom, and the man that gets understanding. Okay, so here's the bottom line with what we just read. God is saying, don't trust your own personal, worldly judgment or understanding of anything, because you're going to mess up if you do that. He's saying, trust in my understanding. Well, how do you trust in God's understanding? That means that you have to surrender who you are in your ego and in your me. You have to surrender all that, give it to God, and say, God, you lead me. What do you want me to do today? God, who do you want me to serve today? Who do you want me to reach today? What do you want me to say today? So it is in surrendering who we are in our personal ego. We go to God and we say, God, use me as your servant. How can I serve you today, God? And then listen and wait for the answer. And then as we continue to seek God first, and that means get a Bible, start reading it, and let God speak to you through his word. Listen to YouTube, scripture verses, listen to them day and night, be in prayer, pray for yourself, pray for your family, pray for your loved ones. And when you're honoring God with being in the Bible, by listening to his word, by letting that sink in, the scripture sink in, then that means that when you read it, you're going to go, oh, okay, forget not my law. What does that mean? It means keep the 10 commandments. So then you look at the 10 commandments and look at that list and say, where am I out of alignment? And if you're out of alignment, then look in that list and get back into alignment. And then it says, honor the Lord with thy substance, the first fruits of thine increase. What that means is you get paid. So you're going to take a portion of that money that you got paid and you're going to put it away, and it is for God. It is, you're putting that money away and you're gathering it. Okay. And at some point God is going to say, okay, that money over there that you put over there, I want you to now take out this portion and I want you to give it to that person. And the first time you do this, it might seem kind of strange. Okay. But I can tell you, God is so perfect and the numbers are so perfect that literally I will wake up, with a number on my mind, like, what is this number, and I'll write it down. And then later on, someone will call me and they will say, hey, I have my stuff in a storage locker and I need to pay this thing today. And the bill is, and it's the exact number that I had woken up and written down. And I'm like, I can't make up this stuff. Okay. And then I know that I am supposed to steward this money that I've been saving and give it to this person that needs it in that exact moment. And I did. And that person was grateful that they could recover and save their belongings. Now, what I'm getting at is, this is not stuff that, quote, makes logical sense to a worldly person. This is what makes sense to God's heart. That you are being obedient and you're saving money every month. You're putting it away. And then when God says, take this portion and give it to this person, you're obedient and you do it. And as I do that in obedience, additional blessings come to me, whether it be physical belongings or financial, blessings, whatever. It's like, as I honor God, God honors me, and I have everything that I need for food, shelter, clothing, etc. And I'm well taken care of. But I know that that's true because I am honoring what God told me to do. Okay? For whom the Lord loves, he corrects, even as a father in the son in whom he delights. So I don't know about you and your upbringing, but I can tell you that, growing up, if I did something that was wrong, and let's say I was around my grandfather, he would have gotten out his belt, he would have taken off that belt, and he would say, come over here, girl. And he'd give me a couple strokes with that belt. And he's like, don't you do that. Okay? Now, in that moment, did it shock me? Yes. Did I do that behavior again? No. Did I talk back to my grandfather? No. Okay? Likely, another example is my own father. So if I'm, out and about and I'm doing something that he didn't like, he would say, get over here. And I go and stand in front of him and he'd be like, what did you just do? And I'd say, oh, I did this and that. So I'd admit, I confess right to my dad what I just did. And he'd say, do you think that is correct? Do you think that's right? I say, no, sir. And he'd say, go to your room. You're punished. You will have no TV privileges. You will have, you're not going to be able to go outside and play today. I want you to go in your room and think about what you just did and why that's not going to work. And I would be sent to my room and I would sit there and ruminate on what I did wrong, why I was wrong, what should I do next? And at some point my dad would knock on my door and he'd say, are you ready to come back and have dinner with the family? And I'd come in and sit down and he'd be like, why don't you tell everybody what you learned today? Now, the point is, if I didn't sit there and think about the consequences of my behavior, okay, I probably wouldn't have been able to very clearly communicate that. But because my privileges were taken away, it was obvious to me that I was being disobedient in some fashion, and I needed to understand what that was. And then I had to clearly communicate before the rest of the family what I did wrong, and how I was not going to do that again, and how I was going to make amends to whatever I had done, okay? And that is how I was brought up. Now, let's talk about my mom, okay? If I did something that was disliking to her, and let's say we were in a store, a public place, and let's say me and my brother were getting bored because we're in a store, my mom's trying to go shopping, and we're getting bored, so we're like underneath of the clothes racks trying to play or hide or whatever. And my mom, man, the minute that we were causing a scene or being disruptive, she pulled our ears and pulled us right out of that store, and we might have been whining and crying, and she left the cart, left whatever she was considering to buy or whatever, and she drove us back home. And that was the end of it. There was no talking back. There was no children leading and telling the parents what to do, all that nonsense. No, my mother put us in our place, and that was the end of it. And when we got home, our privileges were taken away, okay? And you start as a child to then understand this is acceptable behavior, this is unacceptable behavior. If we went out to a restaurant and we were being disruptive, my mom and dad, took a hand and slapped us right in public, and that was the end of it. And we might have cried for a second, and if we were unruly, my mom would take us out, and that would be done. My dad would get the check, and it was it. There was no kids having a temper tantrum in the middle of a restaurant that went on with their screaming and crying for hours, disrupting everybody else in the restaurant. No. My parents were down and dirty, like, this is the way that it is, this is the way that it isn't. And I learned proper behavior and respect. But that is because my parents were demonstrating an understanding of those 10 commandments. Okay? Might have been simple, might have been basic, but the rod is better to discipline the child than the child not being disciplined and being an unruly child. And then an unruly child becoming an unruly adult. I mean, it's pretty simple. So, bottom line, figure out how to understand the 10 commandments and start to understand where you're out of alignment, get honest with God, confess to him, and start to take responsibility. Because when you're really truly understanding who God is, you want to honor him. And by honoring him, that means that he's loving you. You want to love him back. And his love language is follow my 10 commandments. So just honor him in his love language. It's that simple.